keeping the audience with you.
Keeping the audience with you.
I think that's your, because when you say keeping the audience with me, that entails technology, that entails content, that entails planning, that entails strategy, that entails communication, marketing, and so forth. So it's keeping, trying to not let your audiences churn from your offering.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the AUD podcast channel. We have a very special guest with us today, Mr. Ashraf Younis. Ashraf, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning, Khalid.
Thank you so much.
It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
So, Ashraf, you've got quite the career and some unique experience. It's very rare that I have the pleasure of sitting across someone who has such experience and depth in a particular field. So, guys, to give you context, Ashraf is the director of MBC Group, and he's been running, MBC Action, MBC 3, and the Saturday Sports Channel, and all the kid stuff that you guys have going on. And he's been with them. He just celebrated, congratulations, his 21-year, I think, anniversary.
Absolutely.
So it's safe to say, I think you like that company, right?
I think so too. Yeah.
So, Ashraf, first day, I wanted to really dive into your experience, your story in the media landscape, kind of touching on what we talked off camera right now. Where were we, where are we now, and where are we going? And you're also, I know, a professor here at the university teaching global media economics.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yes.
So I'd love to dive into, the teaching world as well. What are the synergies you find bringing industry into, the classroom and vice versa? But before we get into all of that, Ashraf, why don't you give all of us a little bit of background about yourself, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Thanks, Khalid. Okay, so yeah, you're right. I think I've done quite a few things in life. I consider myself as a lifelong learner. And what's unique about this is there is no set age. It's a constant learning. I guess I've done quite a few things that sort of broadened my thinking. And this is what probably led me eventually into teaching, and we will come to that for sure. So when I had started, let me give you a bit of my background. So I'm going to sound too old, but yeah, but that's the reality. So I did more than 18 years in marketing and communications, and that's how I started. I think it was something to do with the family. Many of my cousins were into the advertising, as it was called back in the day. So it was fun. It was a creative stimulation and so forth. But it was a time when, have you heard of acetates?
No, I have not.
Right. Yeah. See, this is something new. Now, acetates were back then transparent sheets, and you would actually write your slides on those, and then you put it on a projector, and then you show it.
Oh, those.
So
okay, yeah.
So that kind of acetates.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I've done that. I've done that for as I said, about 18 years. I started in Kuwait, then ended up in Greece. Moved from Greece in Dubai, and I came to Dubai back in 1995. So, so it's been 30 years.
Wow.
Dubai is home, right? And it's like for the many of us, Dubai is home. But then at a certain point in time, I've wanted to go on the other side of the fence, right? Where the grass is always greener. Had enough being a service industry, I wanted to go on the client side. And let's try it.
Do, yeah.
Give orders, and I want to brief and so forth. So I've done that for a few years. And then, sheer coincidence brought me into MBC. And that was introduction through a friend of mine who was a colleague of mine back in the advertising world. And that was in 2004. I was in Jordan for I think a period of about 2 years. I came in at 2004, did an interview with MBC, and here we are, 2025, and I'm still in MBC.
Wow.
Now, if you ask me about MBC, I mean, you said it, Khaled, right at the start, and I think, again, MBC to me is beyond family in a sense, right? I mean, that's where you spend most of your time, actually there, and throughout the 21 years, and I've said this on several occasions to many people within the organization, is I've honestly do not recall a day getting up in the morning and saying, I don't want to go to work. Again, I think it's just the vibes. I've seen quite a few within MBC. I mean, 21 years, many people have changed, right? Probably I was constant. But yeah, I mean, it's just the environment. I mean, there's something kind of new every day. I remember when I've joined, I actually joined MBC as a marketing and communications at the time. And it was for the Arabic-speaking channels. So back then we had MBC One, obviously, which is our main channel. MBC Two at the time was only recently launched, and there was a colleague of mine who was handling it. Then it started to roll, right? So we've launched MBC Three, and then it just a positive domino effect of channels. 2010, if I recall well, October, an opportunity came to within MBC to change from being in marketing to actually go and handle a channel. And at that time, it was MBC Three, and that was a major career shift. I mean, the principles are the same, obviously, right? But it's just getting into what it takes to actually get a channel launched. How to fill out the grid on a daily basis, the programming, productions, and so forth. So it was definitely an eye opener, and it was just fun dealing with kids' content. I mean, honestly, today, and when you're thinking of escapism, there's nothing better than watching, I don't know, Tom and Jerry. Or any of those evergreen, content, which we all grew, watching, and it's just relaxing.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
It takes your mind off the day-to-day mundane and and the hassle of life. To many, they think that it's a kids channel is an easy thing to do. Actually, it is not, because it's if we look in today's psyche of kids. I mean, kids are discerning in their choices too. We know that they spend a big bulk of their time, of course, aside from studying, on consuming content.
Yeah.
And the consumption of content varies, right? Mm-hmm. So, sure, they're on digital, they're on YouTube, but they are also, on TV. So you need to offer them content that is what it's the term that we would like to use is edutaining, right? So it's a combination of education and entertainment. Because if you give them too much of each, you're not achieving your objectives, right? So again, and today's kids viewers, I mean, within the cloud of MBC, today's kids viewers are tomorrow's adult viewers within your network, right? So that's the whole idea, and that's why hence you need to grow them and so forth. Is it an easy thing? Obviously not. You have to be extremely discerning in your choices. Obviously, editorial checks, quality control has to be extremely harsh.
Especially for kids.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Right. So, I mean, within that journey of just talking about MBC Three, so you've seen it from, the journey from television to digital to television to digital. So, God knows what's going to be next.
Yeah.
So that's on the MBC Three side, if you want. And I'm sorry if I'm
No, please.
Just wanted to give you a bit of a background.
Yeah.
MBC Action was an addition, and again, MBC Action is it's a channel with an adrenaline junkies. Right?
Yeah.
These are the kind of viewers that you're looking for MBC Action, and somehow the MBC Three kids would either graduate to go into MBC Action, or they would graduate to go into MBC Four if they are on the female audience. Again, choices are very important as to what the content is. We know that the biggest challenge across on linear in general is digital, right? So regardless whether you're talking about kids, adults, youth, name it, it's and again, since Action is more on the youth side, it is the digital. That's your main competitor, right? Yeah. So your content has to be cherry picked in a sense that it's either they would come in and engage with you, and the engagement, generally speaking, would be a football show, because that's what really gets them. Other content, I'd hate to describe it as such, but it would be your kind of background music, whatever it is, right? So it's there, you kind of glimpse at it while you're chatting or while you're, on your social media, etc. So again, that doesn't mean by any way that TV isn't. TV is going to continue. I think the consumption of the television is changing.
Yeah. So it's interesting that I never looked at what you guys do at MBC as in terms of the channels, as like a long-term strategy. So it's interesting to hear all the MBC3 guys will eventually become our Action viewers of tomorrow. And I never made that connection because they all seem so isolated and siloed.
Right.
Yeah. So when it comes to, we touched on, the kids aspect and how much content they're consuming now. Like you said, TV is not going anywhere. However, what you're consuming on TV is very different. You're not consuming actual TV channels now. It's like, I'm watching YouTube on my TV. I'm watching Netflix on my TV. Now, you talked about how you launched the kids channel. You were doing MBC Action as well, and I think you did some others. Right. I guess when launching a channel, I can imagine you come up with a certain framework of what you need to do to build this channel. So you have the logistics, the production, you get all that set up. But how do you decide what kind of channel to launch? I'm sure you guys do a lot of research before you make that kind of investment. So walk us through that process of, should this become a channel? Should this not become a channel?
Sure. Obviously the starting point is you need to look in the market, right? And look at, obviously, what are the gaps? That's your starting point, right? So what gaps are there? And then, for instance, within the MBC world, if you think about it, we've actually got a channel that caters to probably every single
interest or niche or something.
Exactly, sure. Right? So from family entertainment all down to sports, and what goes in between them. So your starting point is really seeing what's the gap, right? And on that gap, then you go into in depth to understand what's the psyche, what your audiences are looking for, and so forth. And then that's your starting point.
Yeah.
So once you've identified the gap, then you need to work on what is the DNA of your channel.
Sure. Yeah.
And you start to build. It's the backbone, and then you start to add the flesh. Basically on it, right? This is what it is.
I just had a thought. I'm like, okay, since consumption has changed now, I'm sure, let's say, okay, you've done research, you're like, okay, there's a gap in the market for this type of content.
Sure.
But then where I would go is, okay, what's the best medium to release this type of content on? What do I mean by that? So let's say you guys found the gap in the market, cars. There's a massive car gap in the market. We should make a channel on that. Great. But then the next question should be, I think, should we do a TV channel, or why don't we just do it all digitally on YouTube and Snapchat shows and TikTok? So it's not just now about what's the gap of content we need to make. What platform makes the most sense for us to launch this type of content? Because I'm sure there could be arguments for digital and for more, I guess, to physical like TV.
Right. It's a very good question. Again, I think it depends on the genre itself. It's good that you've mentioned about automotive, let's say, of automotive sports. Sure, if you're talking about the likes of car reveal and what is it about this car, et cetera, et cetera. I think that could probably be a content that would be on a digital. But if you're looking at I mean, if I'm trying not to give names of shows, but I mean, there's no one that can escape, for instance, a show like Top Gear. Right?
Yeah, very true.
When you talk about cars, you talk about Top Gear.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But Top Gear is a television content, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you can take obviously derivatives of it.
Yeah.
That you can spin it off into digital consumption. So it really depends on the content itself.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I mean today, ideally you'd like to be at all touch points, right, of where your viewers are.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, sure. I mean today, social media digitally, that's where the trend and the future is. But that does not eliminate the fact that you've got a lot of people that still watch the original, if you want, TV, the linear, right?
Yes.
So I mean, it's not everybody has the the privilege or accessibility to internet and so forth, right?
That's true.
So you need to give this and you need to give that, and hence why I said the ideal situation. Or scenario is to be at all touch points.
Yeah, of course.
So you can see me on TV, you can see me on smart TV, you can see me on cable, you can see me on digital. You can, so be wherever your viewer or your consumer is. Right?
And I guess for you guys, you wouldn't go down the route of launching a new TV show if there wasn't a massive demand, like of viewership for something like that on a TV.
Absolutely. I mean, sorry, Khalid, just to pose you on this. I mean,
please.
Again, because from a commercial sense, or the advertiser or the brand, they would want more of the mass appeal.
Yeah, of course.
Mass appeal, you're not. I mean, you've got to be honest, right?
Yeah.
So digital will definitely enhance it, and you can do spin-offs and behind the scene, all that lovely stuff that actually can sit on digital, but. You want the mass appeal.
Yeah.
Mass appeal, you're not going to achieve it, at least for now, except for on TV.
Yeah, which I guess that makes, I can understand that. It's interesting how you said that. So you said there's still a massive demand of viewership for traditional TV. Now, the way I look at that is, first of all, I agree. But the way I see it is, because we were just talking about what's next.
Right.
At the moment, let's say people like my parents' generation, whatever, maybe TV, there's still a big demand for like actual TV content that they watch and so on. But then I reflect on like my generation and like, my younger like sister who's like 20. We didn't grow, I think my generation, we grew up with TV enough for it to still have some meaning to us, but the next generation it's always been on, the phone from day one. So I just think in a generation from now, how relevant will TV still be? Because the ones growing up there didn't grow up, and at that time wouldn't have grown up with it like, for example, we did.
Right. Again, I mean, television by the description may not necessarily be the plug and watch on satellite, but I'm just talking about the actual set.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So today. You've got old smart TVs. So it's all your digital apps that are built into the smart TV. So I'm just talking about the big size television.
Yeah.
I mean, again, today in the world of sports, I mean, come on. You cannot watch it over a mobile phone, please. Or, I mean, you can catch up on news for sure. But, you want to feel that you are inside the stadium, right? So that's what it is. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean by television.
Gotcha.
Sure, we've seen, the impact of technology, right?
Yeah.
And how, again, in today's world, people are loaded with many things in their day-to-day, right?
Yeah.
So you need, not everybody has the luxury, to flick the TV on and watch and etc. Hence, the portability becomes key. But there are certain moments where, you want the whole family together, right? So what's best than watching a football game or, a movie together, And I think this is something that this is how television was, right? The whole family would come in and
sit down
behind. Absolutely,
yeah,
right?
Of course, yeah.
And if you look at it today, it's somehow trying to come back. And I tell you why it's somehow trying to come back, because we did reach a stage where we have become so immersed in our phones that we've become kind of isolated.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, you're in your own world.
Yeah.
But so we've lost those moments of the family gathering, right? So, and I think that's where TV can play a role in trying to bring back the family, at least not necessarily on a daily basis, but
Sure,
at least
sure.
once a week, twice
Yeah,
a week.
yeah.
Let's just get together, watch a movie, right?
Very true. Nowadays, when you're gathered around the TV, yes, you're all in that world together, but everyone's, on the...
Oh, sure. The
everyone's,
multitasking part
we're
is-
together, but we're all in our own...
Absolutely, absolutely.
In our own
I'll
world.
take a quick glimpse on
Exactly,
TV, but
yeah,
I'm on
like-
I'm on
exactly.
my cell phone. So, but yeah.
So you touched on, technology. Now, technology and media are, they go hand in hand. One dictates the other, or the capabilities of what you can do with the other. So I know you guys are MBC would be considered, from my perspective, originally as traditional, TV, traditional television programming and so on. Obviously, over the years with technology and as things have progressed, you've had to, adapt along with that time, which is why, Shahid came
Absolutely.
up. And so what I like to think about is, okay, we have there's the Shahids, there's the Netflixes, there's, on-demand content that you can go and watch whenever you want. The question I start to think about is, I'm like, okay, now I have an aggregator and I can pick the kind of content I want. So my question becomes what's the next, how much more personalized than it already is can it become for me, with technology?
Again, I think one of the uniqueness of technology is the algorithms and, it understanding your thinking.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's more on the personalization, I guess, of, of more content that is... I think this is where it would probably start to, make maybe a dent or a difference. Because today, you're right. I mean, today, in any platform, the trend is, you're right, aggregation, originality, creation of content, streaming. So, again, I'm not talking from what a platform should do to stand out. But the offerings, I think it's the user interface, how quick, how easy, how friendly it is for you to navigate. The technology starting to understand what is it that you want. What are you looking for, really?
Yeah.
You want a bit of sports, boop, I'll hit you something with sports that could actually not only be just a live sports match, but I could offer you also a content, a drama series that talks about sport. Again, so I think the idea, and that's where strength of technology is. You can always look at technology as a two-sided thing,
course.
right?
Of course.
But it kind of starts to facilitate. It helps understand, your liking. I mean, now you and I are talking about that. I'm sure the minute I'm going to open my phone on any of the social medias, I'm going to get something of what we've talked about popping on screen.
For sure.
And promoting it for me, right?
Exactly.
So I think this is where it would probably be. Again, creating original content is key, because that's what would set you apart.
Yeah.
You understanding, obviously, your market, your consumers, and that's, I think, one of the main strengths of the group is understanding really what the consumers want, and then obviously tailoring content for them. You and I, off air, we were talking about, what could probably be next.
Yeah.
I mean, now the new introduction, at least the new introduction for me, is the shorts. So now
yeah.
this is something
Yeah,
that
of
is,
course, yeah.
now everybody's having shorts,
Yeah.
right? I think it's an added content for sure. Now it takes a different naming. That's fine. I think that would give it a different classification,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah.
But what's next? I think that's something I'm sure we will see. We'll find out pretty soon.
Yeah.
Again, I was telling you about vodcasts, and I'm not really sure what the third term would probably be. But it's great. It's good. it's great for both parties. You know, on a content generator, again, that gives opportunity for people to generate content. It is up to the viewer how to and what to consume.
Yeah.
You know?
When it comes to, you know, so obviously, as we just talked about, tech is constantly evolving in different places of the world, different regulations, different cultures, and so on, different speeds. Now, the thing I start to think about is I'm like, okay, there's global media trends and then there's regional media trends. And the question I start to ask myself is, which one should I be paying more attention to? The reason I say that is, I believe, this is my perspective, just putting it out, this is Khalid's opinion only. Right. I believe in our part of the world, when it comes to media, we are great at copying ideas that work, but pure innovation in the space, I believe, my perspective is we've always been, you know, behind, I guess I would say, the West, but I've never understood why, because I know speaking to people on the podcast and so on, we are one of the biggest from a consumption perspective, but not necessarily from an innovation perspective. But nowadays, I feel this part of the world is, all of that is shifting, not just in the media landscape, but across, you know, every industry.
I mean, a very valid observation. Maybe that was probably applicable few years back.
Okay.
Right. I think it's changing, but I agree with you. Today, the creativity, what happens in the West is, generally speaking, what actually applies here when you adapt it, obviously, to, of course, you know, to suit your region. And I think one of the reasons would probably be is that when it's in the West, it's tried and tested, and it kind of, you know, because you when you're picking a content, you're obviously going to go and pick what actually works, right? So you're not going to pick a C-class, let's say, genre or content. So you're going to pick those that have, you know, achieved, you know, high results, viewerships, etc. Now, I think the crucial element of it, its cruciality, is how to adapt it, right?
Of course, that's what it comes down
to suit your market. And you know, I mean, there are many examples, and I'm not here obviously to talk about these, because you know, other colleagues within the MBC are more experienced than me in them. But you know, whether it is Arab's Got Talent, whether it's The Voice, you know, these are big IPs that have succeeded. You know, Top Chef, you know, and the likes of those. But then the challenge is how to adapt them to suit, you know, your consumers and your authenticity in the market. But does it stop here? I'm sure not. And you're right. I mean, we are seeing today a lot of creative content creators from the region. Sure, maybe they are on a social media snackable content at this point in time, which I'm sure this is something that would grow in time for it to become, obviously, you know, big formats.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can see at one point in time the opposite, a format that is created in here, but it's, you know, it's doing wonders in the West.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure something like that could happen.
Well, yeah, I think the way things are moving, eventually there is going to become, because we've had unicorns come out of here from a business perspective. We've had, you know, amazing stuff with sports and so on. I think that's the next thing that's the next tweak that needs to, you know, come, I think to really set it forward.
I think it will eventually, you know, it will come.
Where do you think is the biggest, or what do you see right now as the biggest challenges to media in general from a global perspective? What do you think are the roadblocks that are stopping us from moving forward?
I think it's various elements, but I think the main one, in my opinion, is keeping the audience with you.
Keeping the audience with you.
I think that's your, because when you say keeping the audience with me, that entails technology, that entails content, that entails planning, that entails strategy, that entails communication, marketing, and so forth. So it's keeping, trying to not let your audiences churn from your offering. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that would be. I mean, listen, competition is great because competition gets you to obviously pushing forward and further in order to excel. But as life becomes more and more difficult, more and more time consuming, the not the obstacle but the challenge is how to have content that would constantly keep your audiences with you. Be it your podcast, your shorts, your 30 minutes drama, or it's your 5 minutes snackable content.
Yeah.
Right. It's just how to keep offering content that would actually keep them anchored where you are.
Yeah.
Right.
I love what you said there about keeping the audience with you, and especially, so I read a book not long ago by Gary Vee called Day Trading Attention.
Right.
And what was crazy to me was the depth and complexity of each platform. So how you write on LinkedIn is different to YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, and each one has a different rules of how you write the captions and what's your hook. And so, and you guys and you come from a traditional TV background, so you guys already have your own formula for how it's supposed to look on TV. Do you find it now, since everything is becoming a lot more snackable, to adapt traditional approaches to what is working currently, or do you have to kind of marry the two to kind of hit both touch points nowadays?
I mean, I think you have to take it on a case by case basis.
Sure.
But in general, yeah, you have to adapt to whichever model that works best.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you're script writing, for a drama, you have to script write for a drama. So you cannot change that, right? You can do on the sides of it something that could actually address a different requirement, or or a different audience, but you have to move along with hand in hand with what with technology.
Yeah.
We know today AI is. That's the next big thing, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
And a lot of people obviously are. The question that you'd always get: is it going to replace us? No. I mean, although when you go onto any of the AI tools, and you can actually have now a command, write me a human-like document. But I mean, there's definitely. It will not match the the humanity or the human feels that we've got. But yet again, and this is going back to your question on technology, yet again, it's a tool that is going to facilitate a lot of stuff. It'll make things much easier, much quicker. That will, enable creators to create quicker and faster and deliver it. You don't have to wait until somebody comes in and does the dubbing or the translation or the. Now we can automatically just do it. Does it give you? I mean, obviously it is. It needs a lot of still tightening.
Of course.
But does it do a good job? Yeah, not bad.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
Yeah, no, for
sure. You can read a couple of words that you say, hold on, that's that sounds a bit weird.
Yeah.
But at least it facilitates it facilitates stuff. So that's your next big thing.
No, it's funny, I can't seem to do a podcast these days, no matter what the topic's about, without talking about AI, whether it's matchmaking, whether it's content, whatever the case might be. And I resonate with what you were saying, in the sense that I don't think it would replace us, but you should definitely use it. But
True.
It's how do you use it, for what context?
Absolutely.
How much of yourself are you taking out of the equation? Because at some point you're going to have to come in. Like, it gives you the skeleton, and then you have to come in and tweak and create it to make it your own.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, again, in global media economics, in the lovely class that I actually have had the privilege of teaching here in AUD, and I tell the students, Chat GPT or DeepSeek or whatever form, whatever name it is. Sure, I mean, these are great tools that would, I come from a time when I had to go to a library to pick up encyclopedias that were, probably 5 kilos of weight, flip pages to find what you want. Now it's just a push of a button that can give you, the world at your fingertips. But don't depend a lot on it, because it would really, really start to diminish brain cells.
Of course,
right? You stop using your mind and depending the whole time about what those platforms would offer. Sure, they're a helping hand, but always take anything that comes with technology, take it with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
Right? Too much of it is obviously, not great.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. Obviously, AI is the next thing. So I've been asked on podcasts, Khalid, do you think AI will replace podcasts? And I was like, it was an interesting question, because we're having like this debate with this founder community that I'm a part of, and someone said something that really stuck with me. I'm like, I think I support that message, which was, he's like, AI is the best aggregator in the world,
right.
But it doesn't have context, nuance, the stories that you were talking about now, the stories that we've lived through and have and can bring into what we're doing. But so he said, if you're looking for a podcast that is purely, you want facts, I definitely think there's going to be a space that there are people that'll be running AI podcasts that are just AIs talking, that will do very well. I'm sure there's a space for that, for sure. But as that space builds, the demand for what we're doing right now, this human conversation with all the mistakes and the jokes and the stories, is going to grow just as much in parallel. So we're becoming as tech is advancing, from a media perspective, we're becoming more isolated and unique.
Right.
But that's also fueling our desire for these kind of conversations. So it's interesting that two different things are going on at the same time.
True. Listen, there's nothing like this human interaction. I've done, a simple example is I've done in this semester, I've done, few classes that were online.
It's not the same, is it?
Absolutely not, right? So what I'm thinking when you're doing an online class is that the receiving party, on the couch, probably, browsing through social media, maybe not even in the room itself, right? So again, the delivery is completely different. So there's nothing will ever, in my opinion, will substitute the humanity, this human touch, this interaction. Looking at you, the expressions on your face, which prompts me to either smile, or whatever. So that. Don't tell me an AI is going to replace this. No way. You're right. Yeah, we could have an AI podcast.
Yes,
sure.
Of course.
Today you can talk to ChatGPT and it will answer you back. So that's a start of a kind of a podcast, right?
Exactly.
But that element, that's not going to be there.
Yeah.
This humanity is not going to be there.
I 100% agree with you. So I know you. So you just brought up the teaching side.
Sure.
So I know you're teaching a class here called Global Media Economics.
That's right.
And correct me if I'm wrong. This is your second stint as a professor at the university.
That's actually the third.
Oh, that's the third.
Yeah,
okay.
I did. I think it was in 2022. I did for the undergrads.
Okay.
I taught intermediate production.
Okay.
And that was really, really fun. Again, because you're talking to a caliber of, young who are hungry for learning. They're creative. Everybody wants to become a presenter.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of vibe that you get from that particular class. And then I did absolutely global media economics. This is the second year, and that's a completely different level in all aspects. Obviously, the type of content, because you're talking about, whilst the name could be scary, global media economics, but but you're talking about things that are actually relevant. Most of what we've actually spoke about today on this podcast is actually part of global media economics. Add to it, of course, the financial statement,
Sure.
P&L, and cash flow, and all those stuff that the students love to hear. But again, the caliber of people is different because they come with experiences.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Regardless of what that experience is, today again, there's a difference between when you're fresh, no experience, versus when you've done a couple of years of whatever it is that you've done. So the thinking differs, the interaction differs, listen. I've done, and I'm proud to actually say that, and I've mentioned it even to in the class. Is I've done my master's at the age of 55.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mashallah.
So thank you. What that means, it means, and that's why at the start I told you I'm a lifelong learner, right? It doesn't matter. You can do it if you have in you what it takes to actually do it. There's no age for you to stop learning, right? Although it was a big challenge, obviously. Having to go back into reading books. Oh, I tell you. I think I've read in those 2 years more than my consumption in my life in terms of reading. Because I wanted to prove to myself that after leaving, studying for more than 30 years, I can still do it. So it's A, I wanted to do it for myself. B, I wanted to show my kids that I can still do it. So why I say that is I say it because there is, I encourage anyone who has in him or her the eagerness and the hunger to constantly learn.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
In whatever field it is, what brought me into teaching is I love it. I just love teaching. I think having done more than 35 years of experience in various fields, I think it is my mission in life to actually share some of my learning, some of my experiences with others. Now, whether they take it, whether they disregard it, that's a different story. It's just I just want to download this experience. I've been uploading experience for so many years, just in a download, right? I want to empty that hard disk.
Yeah, for sure. So the teaching element, I understand how when you're working with the undergrads, there's a different type of energy, and when compared to the the global media class, and teaching is something I resonate with what you're talking about a lot. I love to learn as well. However, once I graduated university, I had zero desire to do anything more academic related.
Sure.
Learning on Khalid's way, Khalid's terms, no exam, fine, no problem. But sit and do that. So it's interesting. I've spoken to many people on the podcast who have gotten PhDs, masters, and much later into their careers, just like you did. And I always used to ask why. I didn't understand. I'm because what could this class teach you at this stage of your career that you haven't already probably learned in the last 20, 30 years? And someone sat me down and said, it wasn't the theory that blew my mind, but it was the process of presenting in an academic format. Right. Because that is a different way of thinking. Right. And, and he's I had so much experience, 10 years, entrepreneur, successful. I went in and it didn't work out because I wasn't thinking like an academic. I was still thinking like a businessman. So that just showed me that there's complementary skills that you can still take by going through a master's at whatever stage of your career.
Absolutely. So what I did, my master's is in adult education, adult learning in specific. So that was the master's that I've done.
Okay.
And why I have done it is because in order for me to actually be able to teach, that is the course that I had to.
Have to take. Okay.
So, so that's the step number one. So I did, as I said, adult learning, adult education, adult learning, and the whole process. Many of what we've actually studied within the 2 years were what we've done in our lives, right, in terms of experience, but just putting it academically. And that's where the challenge was.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if I repeat this, my students would probably not like, but it's we had to do the APA 7th edition formatting. That was a key. APA formatting, Khalid, in simple terms, is how you structure your storytelling.
Yeah.
Right? Indents, introduction, paragraphs, spacing,
all
etc.,
that.
etc.
Oh, what a nightmare. Oh my God. Okay.
Exactly. But what it does, it makes you think always how you structure even in an email that you're sending to anyone, how you structure it, right? Because you can write the same thing, but in completely different ways, as you were saying, right? I can write it in a smart, casually kind of thing, but that one just teaches you how to do it in a proper format, right? So it does take whatever you've learned in your life experiences, but it just absolutely buckles it in a theoretical, discipline. And I remember until today my capstone. God, I had to write 10,000 words. And that was like, holy, where am I going to get 10,000 words from? But actually, funny enough, I sort of was so immersed in the thing that I actually wrote more. And then I had my advisor send me back saying, you got to cut down. You got to go back to your 10,000. Trim. And that's actually harder, when you trim, because do I keep this? Do I remove that? Etc. and so forth. So again, it teaches you how to be precise and concise in your delivery.
Yeah.
Right?
So you've taught, like we said, the different classes. We've talked about the tech. We've talked about education, how the media landscape is changing. So if I'm now a 18-year-old kid, I enter, the university, I want to study communications, I want to study media. What advice would you have for me? What do I need to know before I decide to go down this path in terms of a career?
First I'm going to sound like my father and his father. You got to have a degree. So that's number one.
Full stop.
You got to have a degree, right?
Okay.
Because that's your back support. Is a degree. That by all means does not say the likes of Steve Jobs or whoever did it out of their garages. But those are a few cases, right?
Yeah.
So you got to have a degree, right? And what you need to do is follow your passion. What is it that you want to do? And I think at this specific age, youth are confused.
Very,
right?
For sure, absolutely, yeah.
Do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? And again, this is something that I said for my eldest when he did his university. Obviously, at that age, sure, there's confusion, there is peer pressure, we all want to study engineering, let's study engineering, whatever it is. So try. The freshman year I'd consider it as a tryout.
Yeah,
right?
It's the throwaway.
Just go in there, get a bit of this, bit of that, try it and see, right? But then follow your passion. What is it that would actually trigger you from the inside? What makes you happy? Is it being creative? Is it being marketeer? Is it being sales? Is it being a financial advisor? Just follow your passion, and just go do it. Right? In reality, there should be nothing that would actually stop you. And then you're young. At any point in time, you can divert.
That's true.
Many people divert. And again, my son was one of those. Started in one thing, then diverted into another, then diverted into a third.
Yeah.
As long as you eventually find your path, just go for it.
Yeah. But it's that going for it that helps you find the path.
Absolutely.
It kind of has to be a little bit scatterbrained and those at that time, just like, okay, try this, try that, because that's how you start weeding out, okay, not that, this, and so on. And I saw actually the LinkedIn post you put up of, I believe it was your son, they had a manga that got like
Oh
posted.
yes, that's
whatever.
my youngest.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
And I'm a big anime fan, so when I saw that, I was like,
are
yeah,
you?
let's go.
I should introduce you to him.
Yeah, please.
And vice versa.
Yeah, please. So Ashraf, today we've talked about where media is, the teaching side, the tech, everything we've talked about, where it's going to go. Obviously, lots of questions. AI, we have no idea. I just wanted to round off the conversation for today with just, reflecting on your 21 years. You went into a industry that is unrecognizable now 20 years later. So I'm just curious, when you reflect back, what have you learned, I guess, about media in these last 20 years that has been like, that's the thing, that's the thing that really it comes down to?
Tough question. That's a pretty tough question. I need to think about this. If I reflect on 21 years, media hasn't changed that much in the sense of media, but it's just the way that it is packaged and delivered. I think this is how, what I just to make myself clear is, so 21 years ago, you would pick up a newspaper and you'd read it. 21 years later, you'd pick up the news and read it, but not newspaper. You'd pick up your tablet or your mobile phone. So the media is the media, right? And obviously, in 21 years, I've seen. I keep on saying the 21 years. It makes me get older and older. You see the progression.
Yeah.
Right. You see the progression, where it had started and where it is today, and hopefully where it's going to evolve to. The ingredients, in my opinion, again, this is my pure opinion, ingredients are the same. It's just how you actually mix and cook, the ingredients in the pot.
In the pot, yeah, absolutely. Very interesting to hear that from your perspective at least, that it hasn't changed as much as maybe we think it has, but the thing that has obviously changed the most is the tech and the packaging and how it's being consumed.
Again, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, you'd pick up and read in the newspaper, in the economic section, you would read the stock market. But today you read the stock market, but you read it on your tablet.
Yeah.
So it's the same information about the same element, but it's being said differently.
Exactly.
For more tech savvy, more on the run people. Right?
Yeah.
So this is what it is. I guess. So
more bite-sized, more digestible, more quick,
snackable.
Snackable. Exactly.
Content, right?
That's the perfect. That's actually the perfect. That's literally the perfect word for it.
Absolutely.
Ashraf, for my last question, these are questions we ask all our guests. So, the ethos and the mission of this podcast is to showcase that success comes in many forms and that learning never stops. And the first thing you said when we sat down today is that you're a lifelong learner.
Absolutely.
You got your master's at 55 and so on. So you're a true testament to the message that we're trying to give out with the show.
Thank you.
I believe you learn many, obviously, throughout your career and throughout life, you learn many things. But I always believe there was something you learned that really was a game changer, that really, broke that glass ceiling and you saw the world in a completely different way. So if I asked you what that game changer, if you had to pick a game changer learning that you had, what would you say it was?
A game changer in learning, in specific.
What is something you learned that just everything changed?
It may not necessarily be learning as in academic learning, but it's to me is life is short. Try and do as much as you can within the time frame that you've got, which is an unguaranteed time frame, right? And that, I think, when you realize this, it's a game changer for you. And to me, my game changer is my master's. That was an academic changer, right? But it's just realizing that I'm at 55. I'm nearing the 60 back then. So let's prove that I still have it, right? And I think not the actual ingredients of what I've learned in those 2 years, but it's just the fact that I can actually do it.
Yeah.
And I think every person has it in him or in her. It's just taking that one single step to make a change in your life. And sure, the younger you are, the better it is, to do it. But just don't say, I don't want it. I don't want to do it. It's enriching to your soul. It really enriches your soul. Sure, it's stuff that you are aware of. You've picked it up on throughout your life experience, but it just it's the cherry, the cherry on the cake kind of thing. I've achieved it. I've ticked all my boxes or on my bucket list. I still have on my bucket list. PhD is going to be the next step.
Okay. Oh, really?
That's
lucky to go down that route.
If I've, I still have it in me. But if God, still grants me, further years in life, that's going to be my short-term objective is to do doctorate. I know it's going to be. It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Thinking, oh man, I'm going to go back again. And this one you've got to do, I don't know, present and all that stuff. But there's no limit. There is no stop. It's what you decide for yourself.
Yeah. I really resonate with that message. And I love that, it's like you said, sometimes I think there's a lot of things we want to do, but we think either we don't have the time or it's too late. And just remembering that, is just, and your story is a great example of exactly, what you just said. Ashraf, this has been a very, very interesting conversation for me. I have really, really learned a lot from you. Obviously, I know, I want to thank you as, part of the university as well, for teaching the classes. I've had very good feedback from the students. And, sitting down with you on the podcast, they were 100% right.
Thank you.
I really learned a lot. Congratulations on 21 amazing years.
Thank you.
And inshallah, once the PhD was done, we'll have you on for round 2.
Inshallah, yeah. I'll let you know. Once I sign up,
I'm
going to drop you a note and tell you I did it. Thank you, Khalid. It's a pleasure being here. And again, kalimat haqq towards AUD. I mean, AUD to me is very dear to my heart. And those who know me know that I genuinely say this. It is dear to my heart.
Yeah.
So I'm like an on-call doctor. I'm available. This is not a promotion for hiring, etc. But no, I mean, AUD is dear to my heart. Whenever I'm called, I won't say no. There's something in it that actually brings people in.
No, 100%. And I, as you can see, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair if I didn't feel the same way.
Absolutely.
Ashraf, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Guys, to everyone, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Take care.